I was 7,000 miles away when my phone buzzed with a message that froze my heart. There's a moving truck outside your house. But I hadn't sold anything, not yet. They say distance makes the heart grow fonder, but sometimes distance just hides the truth. I was in Tokyo, finishing up a year-long engineering contract that had taken me away from everything I knew, my country, my friends, and most importantly, my wife, Mira. We'd bought our house together 5 years ago, a modest 2-bedroom home with white shutters and a crooked little lemon tree in the backyard. To me, that house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was our beginning, a place filled with midnight laughs, burnt pancakes, and dreams whispered into pillows. The plan was always simple. I'd take this contract, stack up some savings, and come back to start a family. Mira supported it, or so I thought. I still remember the day things started to feel off. It was a Tuesday evening in Tokyo. I had just finished a late meeting and was scrolling through my messages when I noticed something odd. Mira hadn't replied to my texts in almost 2 days. That wasn't like her. We promised to talk every evening, even if it was just for 5 minutes. I convinced myself she was just busy or tired. Maybe her phone died. But that tiny pit in my stomach refused to go away. Then came the message that changed everything. It was from Arjun, my childhood friend who lived 2 streets over. "Hey, everything okay with you guys? There's a truck outside your house. Looks like someone's moving out." I sat up straight. My mind raced. A truck. Moving. I hadn't asked anyone to move anything. I quickly replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "Are you sure it's our place?" He sent back a photo. My driveway, my house, our house, and 3 men loading boxes into the back of a large truck. I couldn't breathe for a second. I called Mira, no answer. I called again, still nothing. Something deep in my chest twisted, a mix of confusion, fear, and a strange numbness. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew one thing. Something was terribly, terribly wrong back home. And somehow, I was 7,000 miles too far to stop it. I barely slept that night. I kept staring at the last photo Arjun had sent me, our front porch half empty, the flower pots missing, the old doormat rolled up and gone. I kept refreshing my messages, hoping Mira would reply. Nothing. The silence was louder than any fight we'd ever had. The next morning I tried calling again, straight to voicemail. No text, no missed calls, just silence. I started scrolling back through our recent chats. That's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Our conversations over the past month had grown shorter, drier. Mira used to send long messages, tell me about her day, ask about mine, share pictures of the meals she made, the shows she was watching. But lately, just one-word replies. Okay, fine, busy. I had chalked it up to stress or routine, but now it all looked different, colder. I pulled up my banking app. I didn't check it often. Most of my income was going into savings while I was abroad. But now I needed to know. I scanned the recent transactions on our joint account. Large withdrawals. Thousands. Lump sums moved into a different account I didn't recognize. Several payments labeled agent fees and legal services. My heart started racing. I called the bank. After verifying my identity, they confirmed Mira had been making those transfers. Legally, she could, we both had access. But that didn't stop the pit from growing deeper in my stomach. Why would she need an agent? What kind of legal services? I opened the property records website next. It was government-run, a little clunky, but I knew how to navigate it. I typed in our address and hit search. Still under my name. At least for now. It didn't make sense. If she was selling the house, why hadn't the ownership changed? Could she even sell it on her own? Did she forge something? Was she in trouble? I didn't want to believe anything bad about Mira. We had built everything together, but I couldn't ignore the facts anymore. Something was happening behind my back, something serious. I was still 2 months away from flying home, but I knew I couldn't wait. I had to find out the truth, whether it broke me or not. And deep down, I feared this was only the beginning. I managed to get through to Arjun the next morning. He answered on the first ring. "Bro, are you okay? I didn't want to overstep, but things looked weird." "Weird how?" I asked, my voice dry. "Well," he hesitated, "they cleared out almost everything. The furniture, the TV, even the curtains, man. I tried to ask the movers what was going on, but they didn't say much. One of them said, the lady of the house is relocating. That's it." I swallowed hard. "Did you see Mira?" "No, but her car wasn't there either." My mind went blank for a second. I felt like I was watching my life from outside my body, like I'd been cut out of the frame and someone else was calling the shots. I thanked him and hung up, fingers trembling as I dialed Mira again. Voicemail again. This time I left a message. Mira, I don't know what's going on. Please call me. I'm worried, just talk to me. Nothing came back. I didn't know what else to do, so I called my lawyer. He'd helped us draft the original house documents when we bought the place. A sharp guy, older, no nonsense. I told him everything about the truck, the bank transfers, Mira's silence. He asked for a few hours to check the property records and promised to call back. Those few hours felt like a lifetime. When the phone finally rang, I picked up on the first buzz. Listen carefully, he said. Your wife initiated a private sale of the property 3 weeks ago. She listed the house under her name and claimed you'd transferred ownership to her. My head spun. That's not true, I never. I know, he said. It's not legal. The title is still under your sole name. She couldn't have sold it not legally. But here's the thing. There's already a pending transaction. It hasn't cleared yet. The buyer's agent filed the paperwork, but the sale won't finalize for another 5 days. Can she really do that? I asked, my throat tightening. She tried, he said. But what she didn't know is that the deed was never updated to include her name. You're still the only registered owner. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or crushed. My wife had tried to sell our home behind my back. But I still owned it. And she had no idea. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring out at the Tokyo skyline like it could give me answers. The city lights shimmered like stars, but none of them could cut through the fog in my head. She tried to sell it. That thought looped endlessly in my mind. Mira, the woman I built everything with, the person I trusted more than anyone, had gone behind my back. And not for something small. She didn't sell a couch or a car. She tried to sell our home, my home. And the worst part, I had no idea why. The lawyer's words echoed again. 5 days, that's when the sale finalizes. I had to act fast. I got up and grabbed my laptop. My fingers moved on their own, pulling up every document I could find. The original property deed, mortgage records, bank statements, even our marriage certificate. I saved everything to a cloud folder and shared it with my lawyer. I didn't have time to figure out Mira's reasons. First, I needed to stop this sale from going through. The lawyer was clear. Since I was the sole legal owner, the transaction couldn't be finalized without my consent. But if I didn't take formal action, right now, the other party could still press the sale forward, and I'd be pulled into a mess that could take months to unravel. I gave him power of attorney over the property. He said he'd file an immediate injunction in the morning and send a notice to the buyer's legal team. That should have brought some relief, but all I felt was panic. Because none of this made sense. What had changed while I was gone? Had something happened to Mira? Was she in debt, being threatened? Or worse, had she simply stopped loving me? I didn't want to believe the worst, but the pieces weren't adding up in any innocent way. I scrolled through her Instagram, no recent posts. I checked her WhatsApp last seen 2 days ago. That's when I noticed something else. Her profile picture was gone. I clicked on her name again. You can no longer send messages to this user. She had blocked me. I stared at the screen in disbelief. That was it. No explanation, no goodbye, just blocked like I was some stranger. My heart didn't break all at once. It cracked slowly, quietly, beneath the weight of what I still didn't know. But one thing was certain. I wasn't waiting any longer. I booked the next flight home. The flight back home was long, but not long enough to make sense of anything. I stared out the window for most of it, the clouds below like a soft cover hiding the disaster waiting on the ground. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mira's face, laughing, teasing, planning our future. Then I'd see that moving truck, the empty porch, her name on documents she had no right to sign. When I landed, it was past midnight. I didn't go home. I went straight to my lawyer's office. He'd stayed late to meet me. Something about the look in his eyes told me he knew this wasn't just about legal paperwork anymore. He slid a stack of documents across the table. Property deed, ownership records, her forged signatures, the buyer's agreement. And then the last page, a signed affidavit he had drafted based on our existing contract. This, he said, tapping it, is what saves you. I read it slowly, my hands trembling. It outlined what I'd almost forgotten. When Mira and I bought the house, the loan was solely in my name. She didn't qualify at the time, low credit, unstable job. But we were newly married and in love, and I didn't care. I wanted us to have a place to call ours, so I paid the full down payment and signed the deed alone. We had planned to add her name later, but we never did. And she had no idea. She listed the house with a private agent, he said. Claimed joint ownership. No verification was done, just a rushed cash buyer. But once we sent the formal ownership dispute, the buyer's lawyer pulled out. So the sale won't go through? I asked, my voice quiet. No, you're safe, legally. Safe, the word felt hollow. Because the damage was already done. I walked out into the cool night air with a folder in my hands and a pit in my stomach. I still didn't know where Mira was, or why she did what she did. But I knew something she didn't. She never actually owned what she tried to sell. Not the house. And I was starting to suspect, not my heart anymore either. It was time to go back. Time to stand inside that empty house. Time to find out who Mira really was and what else she had taken before walking away. I stood in front of the house for the first time in over a year, and it didn't feel like mine. The porch light was off. The lawn was overgrown, the flower beds wilted. The lemon tree in the backyard, the one we used to laugh about because it never grew a single lemon, was just a thin shadow in the dark. I took a deep breath and turned the key in the lock. The door creaked open. Silence greeted me. The place was hollow, literally. The furniture was gone. The rug in the living room, the paintings we picked out on our honeymoon, the bookshelf I built by hand, all of it stripped. The only things left behind were dust and a faint trace of Mira's perfume in the hallway. I walked through each room slowly, like I was visiting the ruins of a life I once had. In the bedroom, the closet doors hung open, empty. Only a single shoebox sat on the top shelf. I reached for it. Inside were a few letters, photos, and oddly, a small, folded note addressed to me. If you find this, I guess you came back. My hands trembled as I opened it. I didn't know how else to leave. I couldn't wait 2 more months pretending everything was okay. I know what I did wasn't right, but I didn't know what else to do. I didn't feel like this was my home anymore. I felt like I was just waiting for a life that wasn't mine. You were out there chasing dreams, and I was here. Lost. I'm sorry, Raj, but I needed out. Zem. I read it twice, 3 times, hoping it would start making sense. But all I could feel was a strange ache, not anger, not even betrayal anymore, just emptiness. She was gone. Not taken, not stolen, just gone. And she didn't even fight to explain it in person. I sat on the edge of our old bed frame, the one she must have forgotten to take, and let the silence wash over me. There was no shouting match, no dramatic goodbye. Just the echo of footsteps that had already walked away. But even in that silence, something settled inside me. I wasn't here to beg for answers anymore. I was here to reclaim what was mine, the house, yes, but more than that, my sense of self. Tomorrow I would find her. And this time, she would have to look me in the eye. I found her 2 days later. It didn't take long once I stopped expecting her to come back to me. I dug into old conversations, mutual friends, and finally, a clue from an old photo she'd once posted. A tiny cafe tucked into a quiet neighborhood across town. We used to go there during our first year of marriage. She loved their lemon tarts, said it reminded her of a childhood she didn't talk about much. I wasn't sure she'd be there. I wasn't even sure what I'd say if she was. But I went anyway. The bell above the cafe door jingled when I walked in. My eyes scanned the room once, and then stopped. There she was, sitting alone at a corner table, nursing a half-empty coffee. She looked up, and froze. We stared at each other for what felt like an entire lifetime. She didn't smile, neither did I. I walked over and sat down across from her. I see you didn't expect me, I said quietly. Her hands gripped the mug. I didn't think you'd come back early. You didn't think I'd ever come back at all, I replied. Did you? Mira looked away. I didn't know how to explain it, Raj. I didn't want to hurt you. You tried to sell my house. Her lips tightened. It was our house. No, I said, sharper than I meant to. It was my house. You never signed for it. You didn't even ask if you could sell it. She looked like she wanted to argue, but the words didn't come. That silence again. The same kind she left me with for weeks. Why, Mira? I asked, my voice softer now. Why didn't you just tell me? Her eyes welled up and she finally met mine. Because I didn't know how to live in that house anymore. Every corner reminded me of something I couldn't feel anymore. You were gone for a year, and somewhere in that time, I realized I didn't love you the same way. There it was. The truth. Clean, final, like a cut that goes deeper the longer you look at it. I didn't cry, I didn't raise my voice, I just nodded. I came to see if you'd say it to my face, I said, and now you have. She opened her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to explain again. But I didn't want more words, not anymore. I'm done, I said simply, but not broken, not anymore. And I stood up, leaving the past sitting in that cafe chair behind me. The next few weeks passed in a strange blur. There was no big explosion, no court battles, just the slow unraveling of a life I thought was solid. I filed the official documents to remove Mira from any shared financial access. I changed the locks. I called in movers to bring back what little I had in storage. The house, once stripped bare, started to look like mine again, not ours, not hers, just mine. At night, the silence in the house no longer felt haunting. It felt clean, honest. I slept better, maybe not deeply, not yet, but better. I thought letting go would feel like falling. But it didn't. It felt like standing still for the first time in a long while. I went back to work remotely, keeping my head down. My colleagues were supportive but didn't ask too many questions. I appreciated that. I wasn't ready to turn this story into something casual, some heartbreak anecdote shared over coffee or drinks. One day, I got a call from Arjun. "So, are you okay, man?" I smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. "I think I'm getting there." He was quiet for a second. "I always thought you two were solid, everyone did." "I did too," I admitted, "but I think maybe I ignored the cracks." "Still can't believe she tried to sell the house." "Yeah," I said, shaking my head, "but in a weird way it helped." He laughed a little. "That's messed up." "Maybe," I chuckled, "but it forced me to see things for what they were. No illusions, no pretending." After we hung up, I walked through the house again. This time, I didn't flinch when I entered the bedroom. I didn't avoid the kitchen where we used to cook together. The memories were still there, but they no longer had power over me. They were just echoes now. I started redecorating bit by bit, repainting the walls one room at a time. I sold off the few pieces Mira had left behind, not out of spite, but because they didn't belong here anymore. They didn't belong to who I was becoming. And slowly, I began to feel like I had space to breathe again. Not just in the house, but in my own mind. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a question mark. It felt like a blank canvas. About a month after the confrontation at the cafe, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee in one hand, a pen in the other, and a blank page in front of me. I wasn't sure why I was writing. Maybe it was for closure. Maybe it was just a way to finally put everything down and leave it there. I wasn't planning to send it. I just needed to say the things I hadn't when I stood across from her that day. I wrote, "Dear Mira, I don't hate you. I thought I would. After everything, the silence, the lies, the way you left, I thought anger would take over and stay forever. But it didn't. What I feel now is something else, something quieter. It's not love and it's not bitterness. It's understanding. Maybe not agreement, but understanding. You were right about one thing. The version of me that left for Japan was chasing something. A dream, a future, a version of life I thought we both wanted. But somewhere along the way, you stopped wanting it. And I didn't see it happening. I kept calling, sending photos, sharing stories, thinking that was enough. But the distance between us wasn't just measured in miles. You tried to leave by erasing everything we built, our home, our memories, even me. And you almost succeeded. Almost. But here's what you didn't know. I didn't just build that house with money or paperwork. I built it with belief in you, in us. You may have tried to sell it, but you could never take what it truly meant to me. Still, it's no longer ours. It's mine now, not out of pride, but out of peace. I wish I could say I wish you well, but I'm not there yet. What I can say is, I hope you find whatever it is you were searching for. I hope running helped. And I hope someday you look back and understand what you walked away from wasn't a prison. It was a partner, and he was willing to fight, even when you'd already gone. Raj. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. No envelope, no address, just a message for the past, quietly stored in the present. I didn't cry. I didn't ache. I just closed the drawer. And with that, I knew I was ready for whatever came next. It's strange how something can be broken and still stand. The house hadn't changed much from the outside. Same gray walls, same tilted mailbox I always meant to fix. But on the inside, in every room, every small decision, it had become something new, something mine. The guest room was now my reading space, filled with shelves and sunlight. I turned the garage into a small studio where I dabbled in music again, something I hadn't touched since college. The dining room, once set for two, was now just a quiet place where I took my meals without tension or silence thick with resentment. I didn't avoid the memories anymore. I let them be. Like photos in a box, you don't forget they exist, but you don't have to look at them every day. Sometimes I'd catch myself remembering something small, Mira laughing in the kitchen, humming along to the radio, barefoot on the tile. It didn't hurt like it used to. It felt distant, like watching a life that belonged to someone else. Because that chapter was closed. Not violently, not dramatically, just turned. I started hosting friends more often. Arjun dropped by with his kids, and we laughed like old times. I even started talking to someone new. Nothing serious yet, but it didn't feel wrong to smile at someone again. One evening, I stood outside just as the sun was setting, the porch light finally fixed. The yard was trimmed. The lemon tree still hadn't grown anything, but I'd started watering it again. Who knows, maybe it just needed time. Like me. I realized then that this house wasn't just where something ended. It was where something new had begun. Not a return to who I was, but the start of who I was becoming. Strong not because I didn't break, but because I rebuilt. Alone, on my terms, with no lies in the walls and no silence in the rooms. Just peace. And in the quiet of that golden hour, I knew something for certain. She left a house, but I made it a home,